What up? I want to talk about anti-intellectualism, basically. But it's like you see like the rise in glorification and of basically people who are just actually like living life and like living in nature, or whatever, right? Or just like basically accepting things and like liking things and enjoying things for how they are and how they actually are versus um whatever the contrary is. So um like someone saying, oh, I prefer um natural natural acids, right? And that's been a popular opinion for a very long time, but um that's just one example. Or makeup, or um like getting work done. Oh, I prefer like real lips over fake ones, even if they're like whatever, right? It's like you see that like the rise in people liking that and showing off that they like that, right? Which I think that's a good thing, because it's like putting a positive spin on coming back to how things are, how things were, or no, how things are, like living in reality. Um, which you also see like a lot more, like a lot more of an emphasis on not sleeping with a whole bunch of people and blah 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 blah. This at the third, right? Um, yeah, I got my mug. Well, it's not my mug, but I like it, so I use it. But right, and that is actually due to anti-intellectualism. All that stuff came into play because of anti-intellectualism and anti-intuitive thing and intuitive thinking and feeling, right? And feeling that only people who have the qualifications may talk about certain topics or certain things, or you got to go to college for this or that, blah 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 blah, whatever. Which, I mean, it makes sense to go to college for something like I don't know, tech, I guess. But the whole like going to college for like thinking a certain way and blah blah blah, this and third, it's like there is no prerequisite for developing your own will, your own philosophy in life, right? Even if that philosophy includes materialistic things and problems, right? Like, if I'm being completely honest, the whole homophobic thing, homophobic movement is purely an appearance thing, right? It's purely like, it's all developed from opinions from people outside of you. You don't like, if you're a homophobic person, then, and you don't like people because they're gay, then I don't know what to tell you, right? But you've seen that like different points in history where really homosexuality wasn't really a thing, like the Romans, right? The Greeks. The Romans and Greeks were gay as fuck, but you see people who are glorifying them and saying, oh, they're the best, blah 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 blah. But you see them be like some of the most homophobic people ever, and they include homophobia in their philosophy, which in turn is not intuitive thinking, because you're taking things outside of you and including it in that, right? Same thing with like racism, right? Where people, like it or not, racism is a made-up concept, right? And it's all about like appearances and all that, right? You literally have so many people and so many stories where people don't pursue someone else because their family is racist and they're worried about appearances, right? And in that case, they choose their family over the person that could be their one, and their one and only, or one and final, right? Because of racism, the things outside of that, right? Would that be included in your will if you were to separate yourself from society, right? But that in order for you to really truly appreciate everything and for you to develop your own philosophy, that is, you must, well, you don't have to do anything, okay, but you must like have intuitive thinking. But you've seen such a denial in intuitive thinking over these last however many years. And yes, I know homophobia and racism existed before then, but even then it was still all about appearances and tradition or whatever. Racism is passed down, bro. That shit is learned. I wouldn't know. I grew up in towns where they had Confederate flags. Like, my friends were part of the KKK. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Welcome to the South. But like, yo, dead ass, that's how it is, bro. Like, and the people, the niggas in the KKK that I knew, or they had family in the KKK. They were going, when you grow up, you join it, whatever. Like, they like black women more than a lot of people. Not more than a lot of people, but they like black women more than they let on. Like, so you're telling me that if they weren't racist, they wouldn't be with black women? Or if persist not learn, like, it's not innate in, like, racism is not innate in you. And one of the things to prove that is people having crushes on people of different races, right? Something of different genders, different sexes, right? In which you would have to think more and beyond that and say, hey, why would God put me or send someone that I'm in love with who's of a different race or a different sex or a different gender? Isn't the meaning of life to have children or whatever? But that's a whole other, and that requires more thinking, more nuanced thinking, right? People learn to live more so for themselves first and foremost than for other people, but not in a destructive way, but in a more personal and developmental way that allows them to show up in other people's lives in the proper way, right? In the more proper, more authentic way, right? But it's also, anti-intellectualism is such a big scope of things. It affects so many things, right? Like, people also not being able to see like just things outside of them, right? And calling people like performative or whatever. People call you performative because they literally can't see themselves being like that, because they aren't like that. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like, would you call I don't know, would you call like James Bond performative because he does what he does because other people want to do that, right? No, you wouldn't, right? Or you could say, oh, he has the credentials, blah, 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 third, but you know, still, if someone doesn't know his credentials and they see him do whatever, and you're like, oh, he's such a performative, blah, 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 right? Or he's such a try-hard, whatever, blah, 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 right? And that goes with everything. Like, especially with like crushes or whatever, right? People who are performative, and they do and they say these things about them to make that person like them, right? Versus someone coming along and just being like that and being themselves, they will in turn call that person performative and bring them down because they just cannot see themselves being that similar to somebody else because it's so outlandish and so out there, right? So they say it's performative, or they call you this or they call you that, right? And they talk about you, whatever, right? But really, it's all just projections because they literally just can't see you like that. Whether it be envy, jealousy, who cares? Right? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it's like, to not be afraid of being performative, right? And to not be afraid of being cringe. I know, to be cringe is free is fucking crazy. But to not really care about that stuff is for you to live in your authenticity and be yourself, right? And it also calls in people who are meant to be in your life. But it also allows you to develop your will in your own philosophy in such a way that it's authentic to yourself and allows you to live your life in the way that people are glorifying nowadays or being performative of, quote unquote, right? To be a performative, I don't know, male is an interesting thing. Personally, I've never been performative. I know some people have, obviously, it's a thing. But it's like, I don't know, it's very interesting. People will try to attack your character and say, oh, like this, oh, they gotta be like that, or they literally rack their brain for literally everything and outside everything and for everything and every possibility, because they just cannot accept you being yourself, being you, right? But it's very key to get in touch with things that are real, not on the internet, or not from outside societal projections, right? Like one of those things being nature, right? Nature does not care about societal expectations, right? There's no society in nature that I know of. I'm sorry if there is, but there is no society in which nature conforms itself, right? So that's why it's good. That's why I believe the Celts worshipped. They didn't worship nature itself, but nature was their way of connecting to God, because that's the most purest life form. Because they don't fucking eat each other and do this, that, and the third, right? And you can be in nature and live in peace. Of course, there are some things that will fucking kill you, but still, stay away from those things. To go to the tree that's like, you know, in your yard or whatever, and just sit, right? Like, it's all a part of, you know, being your authenticity, right? Like, even if you want to be like that, then like even like wild animals have some sort of expectation upon them, right? Like expectation of being prey, or say like there are different like dynamics and societal expectations within like lion prides, right? Like there's like only like one dude or a few dudes per pride, right? And then everybody else got to kick the fuck out, right? It's like, sure, it keeps their species going, but it's still a societal expectation of, yeah, when you get to a certain age, you gotta fight for your spot to be here, right? And you know, but nature doesn't have that. You know what I mean? Like trees, plants, whatever, don't have that. So that's why, you know, the Celts worshipped in back then. Now, of course, you see such a denial of nature these days, especially like the last 100 years. You see such a an attempt to replace nature and in pollution and to kill nature and all that, right? Which is odd. It's weird. Why would they want to do that so bad? I don't know. That's the wrong dude, man. Like the societal expectation of recycling, right? Most of the things you recycle, with like 60-70% of the things that you recycle are not recycled. They're just thrown away, you know, anyway, right? Like, if not 80%, it's like such a small amount that they actually use. And there's a societal expectation of you to recycle still, despite them just throwing that shit away anyway, burning it anyway, ruining the fucking atmosphere anyway, right? At least in America, right? But even then, this expectation the expectation to recycle comes from companies or whatever, like, you know, like companies like Shell and whoever the fuck, right? Y'all know, right? Like big oil, conspiracies, whatever. Well, that's what that notion comes from. That's what those words come from. That ass. Like, was it carbon footprint? They made that phrase, right? But in reality, there is no amount of littering that a society can do that would do half of the damage that they have done to the atmosphere alone. in the last like 30 years. And it's insane that people still blah 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 this, a third, right? But that's a societal expectation that's like that's like, it's ethical, but it still has no real effect on the way of things, right? Just like, blah 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 blah, right? And it's it's lame, it's lame as shit whatsoever, right? And that goes for like literally everything basically, right? Even the societal expectation of, oh, you're dumb, or oh, you talk too much, or oh, blah blah blah, how dare you have a way of thinking outside of these people. But at some point you must deny that, right? And good to yourself, so you may learn yourself and be authentic with yourself, right? Who cares if other people have denied themselves and did whatever to get where they are? You have to do what's right for you. You know what I mean? That's a part of ego death, right? People talk about ego death all the time, but ego death is really just seeing everything outside of yourself, right? Like, don't put what you've, not necessarily what you've learned, what you've learned about in everything, right? Like basically taking your ego out of everything, right? Like taking your ego out of everything. Ego death involves losing racism, involves losing homophobia, right? Yeah, sorry, if you're gonna be racist, homophobic, you're not gonna go through an ego death as long as you are racist and homophobic, because you learn that that's all part of the ego, to protect some sort of thing inside of you, to protect your ego, right? But ego death would be to see like, okay, yeah, all this happened because of like this, and everything's like this because of that, and a lot of the third, and this is basically just seeing what everything is outside of the individual, right? Right, realizing that race is just more so just a concept and not an actual thing. It's just like, or like about like geographic location. It's not like an actual, there's no part of it being like a trait or whatever. It's all just cultural, right? You'll see like certain people come from certain areas and that's why they act a certain way, not because they're fucking black, or not because they're Hispanic, or because of this, or because of that, right? So they aren't bad people, it's just a different culture. They aren't nasty people, it's just a different culture, right? But you can't see that as long as you are racist, as long as you have your ego, right? But there is a point in time where after ego death, where it's like an ego revival, I guess, where you reintegrate your ego, right? But if you don't reintegrate your ego, you're gonna be fucking depressed. But if you reintegrate your ego into you, back into everything, right? Then you will see, okay, I'm like this. So that's when you go through your shadow work and all that, and you start intuitively thinking. But yeah, anyways, I'm done. Toodles.